Good evening and welcome to a special edition of ABC 10 News. I'm Kimberly Hunt.
And I'm Jim Avila in for Wale Aliyu. It was a landmark night that didn't reflect well on either candidate. The Associated Press saying, quote, Biden delivered halting answers and Trump unleashed a flurry of falsehoods. Joining us now to analyze what we saw at tonight's debate is Linda Beal, a political science professor at Point Loma Nazarene University. Let me ask you about those first 7 minutes. First of all, let's play some of that first 7 minutes where apparently Joe Biden seemed to have some real trouble getting thoughts across.
Making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the COVID, with dealing with everything we have to do with, look, if we finally beat Medicare.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump?
So, Linda, what did you see in those first 7 minutes?
Well, I think strategically this was exactly what Joe Biden didn't want to do, was confirm any impression that might be out there with voters that he's getting a little old or losing a step or not able to sort of vigorously and coherently explain his record and his policies. So I think in terms of framing up the election with some of the fears or concerns or some of the ways that voters are really disillusioned about the choices this year, that really did not help the president's cause very much. He seemed to get stronger as the night went on, and President Trump as well seemed to get more vigorous and vehement. But I think that start was a bit of a rough one for what the president's game plan was.
We all know that viewers today were looking for aptitude as well as substance. The Biden administration has already responded on his performance tonight, saying that he had substance and that Trump had lies. That came from the Biden White House tonight. Part of that from facts that fact checkers are busy looking at now. One of them, let's just play a clip from former President Donald Trump.
There have been many young women murdered by the same people he allows to come across our border. We have a border that's the most dangerous place anywhere in the world, considered the most dangerous place anywhere in the world. And he opened it up, and these killers are coming into our country, and they are raping and killing women. And it's a terrible thing.
So there were other things Donald Trump said tonight, things such as everyone wanted Roe versus Wade to be changed, you know, making those kind of broad statements. So how damaging is that to the former president in light of maybe gaffes by President Biden, but did Trump make ground if people perceived that he wasn't telling the truth?
Right. I think it confirmed also the impression a lot of people have of Trump, that he uses hyperbole, that he distorts or has mistruths. I think there was a lot of blaming immigrants and immigration and just in general fear mongering about how by the end America is a hellish country. That might have, on the one hand, we know in political science, fear and othering really gets people's attention and draws their emotions and could get people more, committed or riled up to participate in the election. But we also know at the same time that that kind of fear really pushes a lot of voters away. And this is very early. We're 4 months away from the election, and I don't know that this performance by either man did much to inspire the American electorate or get them to feel like they're paying attention to their problems and issues. There was a lot of slinging attacks back and forth. By the end, they were arguing about who's a better golfer. And I don't think voters are looking for that. I think voters want to hear, what are you going to do for me, and how are you going to make me live in a better community, in a better country?
That brings to mind, of course, the question of whether or not either of these candidates can recover. I don't feel as though, it doesn't seem as though Donald Trump is going to try to recover. That's what he normally does. But Joe Biden needs to recover from those first 7 minutes, in many people's opinion. Is there enough time? As you say, there's time. Will he be able to recover, or will there be calls right away for him to drop out?
There may be calls for him to drop out, but I don't feel like that's a very realistic scenario. He does not want to quit the race, and it's very, very late to try to do anything else in this election with ballots and things. But I do think there is a lot of time between now and Election Day. Also, though, these candidates are both a known quantity. They both have track records in the White House, and they have strong impressions. Voters have strong impressions of them. And what happened tonight, and probably what's going to unfold over the next several weeks, will not radically shift those impressions. But we'll see what happens with the conventions and on the campaign trail.
Yeah, the earliest debate ever. It'll be interesting to see how the fallout affects the run-up to the November election. Linda Beal with Point Loma Nazarene, always nice to see you. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks. Appreciate it. And you can follow the presidential race all year on 10news.com. We also have a free mobile app. You can use that as well.